retour parmi nous, and welcome back. Our first set of concurrent sessions focuses on how COVID-19 has impacted various sectors and how we can work together to support recovery. The tourism industry is stronger together. Merci de nous joindre à nous pour cette séance de débriefage sectoriel. Nous sommes heureux de présenter cet ensemble de séances simultanées qui mettront l'accent sur les répercussions de la COVID-19 sur chaque secteur ainsi que sur la façon dont nous pouvons travailler ensemble pour soutenir la relance. We are very grateful to the Toronto Star for sponsoring these sector debriefs. Bonne séance, and I'll see you again at 12:45.
Hi, everyone. My name is Christina Frank, and I'm with the Canadian Association of Fairs and Exhibitions. Thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you to Toronto Star, and thank you to TIAC for having me. So I'm going to start off talking a little bit about CAFE, who we are and who we represent, and then we'll delve into the COVID-19 world. So we are a national charitable organization. We're a member association, and we represent fairs, exhibitions, and agricultural societies across Canada. There are about 743 of those, many older than Canada itself. So we're steeped in tradition and history. We also represent a second section of membership, which we call our service providers. And so those are any who have a direct interest in our industry, who support our industry, or who we are able to support. That includes our concessioners, our midway providers, our entertainers, and all sorts of people. Our industry, those 743 ag societies, contribute $2.9 billion estimated annually to the economic impact of Canada. That represents, for every dollar our organization earns, on average about $4.54 goes directly into the community. So the economic impact we offer is significant, and especially in smaller communities. So I think of my own community. I'm based just outside of Montreal in Ormstown, Quebec. We have our local fair. Our population is usually about 3,000 people. But when the fair rolls in, we see about 20,000 people. So if you think about the economic impact there, that's going to help with the restaurants, the hotels, and the bed and breakfast, even the gas stations. Everyone's benefiting from this. And then you think about the security that's hired in some communities. The security company, their biggest contract is their local fair, and same with the print shops and so on. So we really are part of a system, as the entire tourism industry is. And so it's really, really important to understand that. The other thing I want to emphasize is when we talk about fairs and exhibitions, you may know your local fair or exhibition. You may know the Okotoks Agricultural Society, Canadian National Exhibition, Fredericton Exhibition. There's plenty across Canada of all sorts of sizes. But what you might not know is there's an organization behind that fair, that 4-day event you go to every now and again, or that 2-week event. That organization is generally almost always a nonprofit organization, and very often it is either run by volunteers or has a heavy volunteer component. So these organizations, you might know them for their exhibition, but throughout the year, they're also doing fundraisers, they're doing rodeos, they loan out their grounds, they offer winter storage, they do all sorts of things to support community vitality and to support the local, the resiliency of the local community. And like I said, there are some that are older than Canada itself. So we certainly have a sense of what we're doing, and then we're thrown curveballs every now and again, like COVID-19. So not to dwell on it too long, here's our vision and our mission. We are looking to develop a national community of fairs and events and exhibitions. We are there to support them and offer services and help everyone be better at what they're doing. And so certainly we were challenged with that this year and how to do that creatively. We want to build excellence through leadership, building our partnerships, and providing meaningful resources. So our mission and our vision ties nicely into our strategic plan. Our strategic plan, we're currently on the 3rd year of our 3-year plan. And it's focused on 3 pillars. So membership value, leadership, and connecting people. Certainly it's been put to the test this year, but what I've been telling people is that a strategic plan should still be true at its core, even as it has to adapt and change. And so we've seen that with our plan, and I'm really proud that we've been able to adapt it, and it still holds true. So we still want to offer membership value, but it's gone from offering discounts on rentals, for example, to focusing on membership value through COVID. How can we help them generate revenue? Leadership went from government awareness, letting the government know we exist, to government advocacy. And then connecting people went from connecting Canadians to their fares to connecting fares to their networks and their peers to work together. And so when COVID-19 was declared a pandemic, I put this photo up. Some of you may know it. This is the Brook Street Hotel in Ottawa. I feel most people would be able to tell you the moment they realized COVID-19 was serious. And for me, I was sitting in the Brook Street Hotel at the restaurant planning our future convention. And it was quiet. It was eerie. There weren't a lot of people around. And we asked the waitress, and she told us that the COVID was serious. It had come to Ottawa, and they were looking into declaring, taking some serious measures, declaring a state of emergency. So everyone was in crisis mode. This was a couple of days before we were officially declared a pandemic, but that was the moment for me where we went into crisis mode as well. And I should mention, our board had met in Toronto in February, and a very smart board member piped up and said, this COVID thing, it might be serious. We should probably pay attention to it. And so we had a bit of a discussion about it, and we decided we were going to keep tabs on it and follow it and see what we can do as things changed. And so little did we know that something would become of it. So, like most of us, we saw there was uncertainty and fear at first with our entire industry. And then there were the 6 stages of event grief, is what I'm calling it. So, we went through the traditional stages of denial. No, this isn't a big deal. We don't need to worry about it. Anger, bargaining, depression, and then finally acceptance. No, we're not going to be able to make this work. But then the 6th stage was change. So we accept that COVID is here. We accept that we cannot have our events how we would traditionally have them, but how can we change? And there were 2 primary camps of change when I look at our entire industry. And the first camp was, okay, let's just shut it down for this year. Let's cancel, let's postpone, because we are a volunteer run organization. Our volunteers are primarily senior, and so they're high risk. So let's just close it. And I should say there's no right answer here. So that's what they decided to do. And then the other camp of people decided, okay, let's change, let's salvage it. We can't have our fair, but maybe we can do something else. And so they immediately started working with health agencies. And I do not envy the health agencies, because as rules are changing, we're trying to figure it out. They're trying to figure out, we're trying to find this happy medium. And so while some places were able to put in drive-through or drive-in events, drive-through donuts, drive-in concerts, we saw fare in a box delivery services, a lot of really creative ideas that wasn't consistent across Canada. And so it was about figuring out what could work for us. And even to this day, we're seeing those challenges of trying to offer programming and offer community engagement, but doing so within the regulations. But what I would say is we did see, and we continue to see, our members trying to change and trying to still offer programming to their communities. Here's where I'd also like to mention the tourism industry as a whole. We all know we're a seasonal business a lot of the time. The majority of us, our peak seasons are from, let's say, May to October. With fairs and exhibitions, that May to October window, while we have other events and programming as nonprofits, our main revenue source that's going to drive us through to next year is our fair or our exhibition. So that May to October window just shrinks and shrinks and shrinks to our either 4-day or our 2-week event. And so even if we can open up, or when we can open up, we won't be able to open up to full capacity because we're mass gatherings. But we have to wait until we can host that 2-week event again to generate the revenue we can to carry on into future years. So we can't just go back to normal. We have to wait until July 13th, 2021 to host our main event. And so that's been a real challenge too, of how are we going to make it through to that point. So when COVID hit cafe at our level, we went and focused on three main pillars. We wanted to first offer member support. And so this was a lot of phone calls. This was a lot of research and homework. But what we focused on was offering a series of webinars. And these webinars were how to engage your community without your event, how to even just roundtables on whether they were going to cancel or not, the different programming they were going to offer, government relations, digital communication became really important as well for immediate information. For those who didn't have a Facebook page, they quickly got one. And so we offered a pile of webinars. Then we also offered member programming, member services, rather than discounts for rentals. Like I said, we did other ways to generate revenue. And one of the things we did was the Lotto Factory. We partnered with them and we offered a progressive raffle. And it's still running today, but it's a great way for our members to generate revenue. And what happens is it's a big pot, and any fair or exhibition who wants to sign up to it at checkout, when a person purchases a ticket, they can select a fare from the drop down menu, select their favorite fare, and the proceeds go entirely and directly to them. So that's been a really great way and it's been really successful. And we've been offering programs like that because when it comes down to it, we need to generate revenue to survive. The other thing we focused on was communication support. So as fairs and exhibitions, it was a slow and steady trickle of fairs and exhibitions canceling their events. And before we knew it, they were all canceled. But as they were canceling, they needed support with communication. So we helped draft press releases, online communications, and all those sorts of things. And then very recently, we had our convention last week. We did a virtual convention through the Feedloop platform as well, and we focused on looking to next year how they can be more resilient and be stronger whether or not they can have events. So building your emergency plan, building your communications plan, revitalizing your sponsorship package were some of the sessions. We also put together a working to focus on the relaunch model. For us, as I said, there's a lot of diversity in our membership, and so we can't tell you the one size fits all solution, but we were able to develop a model that events can now implement and hopefully not miss any gaps as it relates to planning for a safe event in the future. The second thing we focused on was government advocacy, like I said before. We, the tourism industry as a whole has some very similar challenges. And so we've worked with TIAC and other partners on that, which is a part of my third point there. But we also have some unique challenges. And so the measures that have been put in place have not been overly successful for our industry. So the wage subsidy, for example, has helped our members who have staff. However, those who are volunteer run do not have wages to pay out and so cannot be eligible for it. Even some of those who do have staff are ineligible because they are owned by the municipality. We also don't fit neatly into one department. So we're a little bit agriculture, a little bit heritage, a little bit tourism, a little bit small business. I'm sure some of you what that's like. So we've been approaching multiple departments, talking to ministers, MPs, and the departments themselves, talking about our concerns. And we've been directed to different funding, but by and large, the funding has not worked out for us. For example, the Canadian Heritage Fund of $500 million emergency funds, only 3% of our members are eligible for that, 3% of 743 ag societies. So certainly there's some work to do, and we continue to advocate for our members continually. Then we've been building our partnerships, and I call this a blessing in disguise because we do have a lot of common issues, as you will see this week. Wage subsidy does help some of our members, and certainly that's a priority, for example. But we've been building these partnerships with TIAC, with the Canadian Association of Amusement Operators, and we're part of the Hardest Hit Coalition and so on. And all these partnerships will carry through beyond COVID-19, which is why it's a blessing in disguise, because I've learned a lot. We have our ear to the ground, and we're certainly partaking in the working groups. We're talking to Destination Canada, almost in many ways, not putting all our eggs in one basket, but certainly building those relationships that hopefully will benefit everyone in the future. And I'm pretty confident they will. And then I'm also a member of the Canadian Society of Association Executives, and that's been um, a great place for me basically to communicate my ideas and get some feeling for what associations are doing and how they're reacting as well. So what does our industry need? So I said we're doing a lot of advocacy. Again, we're partnering with TIAC and the Hardest Hit Coalition on a variety of broader, well, in some ways broader, but in some ways specific requests. But for our industry specifically, we put in a request for $74 million to support fixed costs for our 743 ag societies. Unfortunately, the loans we are either not eligible for under the nonprofit model, it makes us very hard to get them, or we cannot repay them back within this short period. We still have fixed costs. We still have maintenance of our grounds. Sometimes we do rent grounds. We have insurance, honorariums, all the usual fixed costs, that bills that need to be paid and can't be deferred. And so we've asked for that from the federal government, and we're continuing those conversations there. In the medium and long term, we're working with TIAC and other partners to focus on things like championing safety. We know we will have to rebuild consumer confidence when we get back. We're not going to have 2 million people at an event unless we put the right measures in place. And so working with the federal government to ensure our events and our programming is safe. Sustaining liquidity, I've mentioned above, enticing Canadians to explore Canada. This one's a really important one. Our industry does really well, particularly our small and medium events, with getting Canadians to come to Canada and see other parts of Canada, domestic tourism. And what we know from Destination Canada is as people feel confident in travel again, they're going to start hyper local, regional, provincial, national, and then finally international. And we've seen a little bit of that coming out and going back in, and it's going to be a bit of a road to recovery that way. But we should really strive to capitalize on that period when people want to travel again and they don't want to leave their country. Let's let them know the opportunities that are there. And so there are ways that the government can support that as well, which is what we are pushing to in the medium term. Then repositioning and supercharging the Canadian economy is just to ensure that tourism as a whole is able to jump back on board and recover quickly and swiftly. Really, we're uncertain of our future. We don't know. It depends on who you talk to on what day. We don't know if we'll be able to have fairs and exhibitions next year. We don't know if we will, but they'll be adapted. Maybe they'll run longer so that we can have less people on the grounds for longer periods of time, or maybe we'll have adapted events again. Maybe we'll have more virtual. Maybe we won't have anything at all. We are really in this uncertain period, which kind of put me to this quote, which I came across a couple of months ago through the COVID pandemic, but it really resonates with me. And some of you may have already seen it before. Do what you can with what you have, where you are. So we've seen that. We've seen, okay, we can't have a fair. Maybe we can do drive-through programming. Okay, we can't do drive-through. Maybe we can just do parades, what we're calling reverse parades, or maybe we can have displays up in town. How can we make the community remember we're there, and how can we support the community? And we've seen great ways to support the community in Ottawa, in Richmond, Ontario, actually. Richmond Fair has a whole pile of barriers and barricades that they use for their events, but they're not using it this year because they don't have any events. So they loan them out to the restaurants. They loan them without any expense. They said, here you go, we're not using it. We'll come back when we need it. So they're helping the restaurants and supporting them. And they're also raising their profile, and they've seen really good results related to that in terms of community spirit, community engagement, thankfulness, and so on. But I really want to emphasize, and I've said it a few times already, we're all in this together. So we're building connections this week through TIAC. And this is a time to share ideas rather than compete. I know we're a bit of a competitive nature business sometimes. So how can you share ideas? And you know what, I'm happy to share our ideas too in terms of what our entertainers have been doing, our concessionaires and our fairs. There's a lot of really good ideas that have been going around, and I think this is the time to share it and see how we can adapt them to our own businesses. I know for us, fairs and exhibitions are really looking to diversify and work year round and not rely solely on that main fair or exhibition. What I kind of want to leave you with here before I open up, if there are any questions, is you may not be hurting, but you're part of a system. And so when the system needs your support, I really hope you will support them. And my example here is Our fairs may have reserve. Your fair may have a reserve that it can count on, it can rely on, and it will survive COVID. But you have a midway that comes every year. If that midway loses half its route because the fairs have not survived, 15 of 30 of its fairs have shut down, it cannot complete its route, or it will have to change its route. And you may lose the midway, which will affect you negatively. That's my scenario, and I'm sure you all can think of your own scenarios as well. But we are part of a system. The tourism industry, we need each other. And so when TIAC or when anyone who you're affiliated with, any association, asks you to fill out a survey or write a letter or call your MP, even if you're not the individual hurting, do it for the sake of our industry. Do it for our community. Ultimately, it's for all of us. It's not about making a profit right now, it's about surviving. And so I really, really encourage you to support the system so that we can all survive. So with that, I leave you. We're finished a little bit early. So if we do have questions, I have Caitlin monitoring the chat for me. Questions or comments, happy to share. And I really, really thank you all for for your time. I'll give you a second to type questions if you have them. And Caitlin, let me know.
Yeah, we'll just give people a couple seconds to think of their questions.
And apologies, I don't know if you can hear that, guys. My dog, I closed the door, but something's upsetting her. I hope it's not distracting you with the call.
Oh, okay, so we have a question here from Kelly. And Kelly's asking, what ways are you suggesting we rebuild our audience once we are allowed?
Well, that's it depends on the context. I think from the event industry, to rebuild the audience, you could be doing that right now. You could be engaging them. So there's a company in the US that does a dog show, and they are transferring rescue dogs across the US because they have the vehicles and they have nothing else to do right now. And so they're engaging their community, which engages their audience, and it inspires audience loyalty that way. And so think about the ways you can do that. When you do come back and when we can have programming again, what I would say is help build that consumer confidence. And so let them know the questions that you would be asking before you go to an event. Will they have hand sanitizers? What measures are in place to make me feel safe? We've seen some events post videos online showing the measures that are taking place. They have rules online letting people be prepared and understand what they're getting into. We've seen Disney do that as well. They've said, okay, we're lowering our capacity so that you can have the freedom to move and lower the risk of COVID-19. So really rebuilding that consumer confidence and just building that community spirit is the final point I would say is, you know what, we've missed you guys. We really hope you'll come back to us. And we've got some really great new things, exciting things, and some of the good old things. So come join us, see what we're all about, and we thank you for your support. Any other questions popping up?
I'm not seeing anything yet.
No problem. Well, you know what? I think with that, if you have questions, I'll be virtually around all week in the Congress. Feel free to send me a message, or we can set up a call, email. Happy to do whatever. I really appreciate everyone joining me today, and thank you for your time, and I hope you have a great day.
Merci de votre participation. Le congrès touristique virtuel de l'AITC de cette année est financé par le Fonds pour les expériences canadiennes en partenariat avec le gouvernement du Canada. Thank you for joining us. This year's virtual TIAC Tourism Congress is funded through the Canadian Experiences Fund in partnership with the Government of Canada.